Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I made a tutorial about this tote bag over on my TikTok and you guys said you wanted a longer tutorial. So in today's video, I'm going to show you guys how to make this puff tote bag. For materials, you're going to need some cotton fabric. I'm using 3 different colors, some polyfill, a ruler, of course some clips and pins, matching thread, a rotary cutter or scissors, and of course a sewing machine. I want my tote bag to be checkered pattern, so I'm using 2 different colors for the outside. So we're going to start by cutting out our squares. I like to fold my fabric over so I can do less cuts on it. You're going to take a 5x5 square. I just put mine on some cardboard. I like to use a cardboard piece as a template so I don't have to keep using my ruler for this. You should cut out 22 pieces of each color. If you're only doing 1 color for the outside, you're going to cut out 44 total pieces. After cutting our outer squares, we're going to cut some inner squares using some plain fabric of your choice. These squares are going to be a tiny bit smaller. They're going to be 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. You're going to cut 44 of these. Now we're going to start constructing our puffs. To do this, you want to take your larger pieces and place them on top of your smaller pieces. You want to align them at one of the corners, and then you want to push the rest of the fabric until the other corner matches up on the other side. And then you're going to fold that excess fabric in the center, creating a pleat. Once we've done that, we're going to do the same thing on all 4 sides. Then we're going to take it over to our sewing machine and sew around 3 of those sides, leaving the top open. I'm going to show you how to do it one more time on the sewing machine. After sewing all of your puffs, they should look something like this. Next, you're going to start laying out your pattern to make sure you like how everything looks. Like I said before, I want mine in a checker pattern, so I'm going to lay mine out that way. As you're laying your pieces out, make sure the opening faces upward. I also forgot to mention that I'm sewing everything at a 1/4 seam allowance. For each side of the bag, I have 4 rows of 5 puffs, and then for the bottom of the tote bag, I have 1 small row of 4 puffs. After you're done lining your pieces up, you want to sew each of the rows together. After you're done sewing your rows, they should look like this. So the next step is to fill each of these little pockets with polyfill. You can use the polyfill of your choice. You can even use old pillow stuffing if you want to, whichever you prefer. I like to take a small piece of polyfill and fluff it out. If you put too much in there, it becomes too dense and it takes up a lot of space. So I fluff it out and start off with a small amount. If it's too much, I take it out. And if it's not enough, I put more in. Just be careful, try not to overstuff them, because if you do, it's going to be hard to sew together. After stuffing, it should look like this. Now what you're going to do is take this over to your sewing machine and you're going to sew the top up. When you sew the top closed, you want to make sure that you do a pleat just like we did on the other 3 sides. Alright, so now that we've finished all of our rows, it's time to put everything together. So you want to place your pieces where you want them to be, and remember that small piece I told you earlier? We're going to attach that smaller piece to the bottom of the front panel. Take your time as you're sewing these together. Having the stuffing inside of those puffs makes it a little bit more hard to sew. After finishing the front and back panels, it's time to sew them together. So we're going to lay our front panel down right side up, and then we're going to take our back panel and we're going to make sure that we place that one right side down. So it should be right sides facing together. Once you have them together, you're going to sew up the side, and then once we finish that, I'm going to show you guys how to sew the bottom. Alright, so once the two sides are sewn together, we're going to sew up the bottom. To do this, you want to take that bottom panel and you're pretty much just going to start by matching up the bottom to the side panel. And I like to clip in place as I'm doing this just to make sure everything lines up. Once I've lined up the sides of the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing with the remaining seam. Then we're going to go over to our sewing machine and we're going to sew those pieces together. After we're done sewing the outer piece to our bag, we're going to flip it right side out and we're going to put it to the side until we're ready to use it. And now it's time to cut our lining. I'm using the same color fabric that I used for the backing of the puffs to make the lining, but you can do whatever you want. So for the lining, you want to cut out two pieces that are 20.5 inches by 16.5 inches. Now we're going to take our two lining pieces and we're going to cut out two squares from each of the corner. Each of the squares are 2 inches by 2 inches. Once we've done this, we're going to go ahead and sew up the side and sew across the bottom. At the bottom, you want to leave about a 4-inch opening. That way we're able to turn our tote bag right side out whenever we're done. After sewing the two pieces together, we're going to box the corners. To do this, you're going to pull the corners outward until they touch, and then you're going to sew across the side on both of those. Now we're going to work on our straps. So you can literally do whatever kind of straps that you want to do. So for this bag, I chose to do a semi-quilted look. So I'm cutting out 4 pieces of fabric that are 3 inches by 16 inches long. I'm cutting out 2 of the floral print and 2 of the gingham print. Once I have them cut, I'm going to place them right sides together and I'm going to sew across the middle seam to make one long strip. It should look similar to this when sewn. After it's sewn together, I'm going to fold it in half hot dog style and then I'm going to sew across the side to create a strap. I'm going to leave an opening in the center though, just so I can turn that strap right side out whenever I'm done sewing. After you're done sewing both straps, you're going to go to that opening and you're going to turn it right side out. I'm choosing to stuff the straps that I'm using just so they can have that quilted feel to them. So I'm taking some of that Polyfill and I'm going to stuff it inside of the straps. If you don't want the stuffing in there, you don't have to. You can just add some interfacing to it before you sew it together, iron it flat, and then sew across the top and do a top stitch, and you have a regular flat strap like that. But I wanted it to be quilted like I said before. Then you want to sew that hole we left open closed. Now we're going to grab that outer piece to our tote bag and we're going to place our straps. You want to place your straps onto the right side of the bag. I'm using clips here to secure them, and once I have them where I'd like, I'm going to take them over to my sewing machine and just do a quick top stitch on there to keep them in place. Alright, now that our straps are added, we're almost done. So now we're going to add the lining. You want to take your lining piece, make sure that it's still inside out, and you're going to take the outer side of your bag and place it inside of your lining. Once your outer fabric is inside of your lining, you want to make sure everything lines up. You're going to clip it together and sew across the top. You also want to double check and make sure that you left an opening at the bottom of that lining so we could turn it right side out. If you didn't, you definitely want to leave a little bit of an opening at the top so you can turn that bag right side out. Now that we've sewn the lining to our bag, we're going to find the hole that we left and we're going to start to turn the bag right side out. Take your time doing this because the outer fabric has all those puffs in it, so you want to make sure you don't rip your stitches while you're doing this. Once the bag is right side out, you're going to find the hole that you left open and we're going to sew that closed. After it's sewn closed, we can take that lining and we can stuff it back into the bag. And the absolute last step is to do a top stitch around the top just to prevent the lining from coming out. I like to sew as close to the edge as possible. And once you're done sewing, you have a completed tote bag. This puffer tote bag is super cute. The finished dimensions are right here. It can fit so much into this bag, y'all. I love it so much. Would you guys recreate this bag? I think it's super cute and I can't wait to make so much more in many more colors. Leave a comment and tell me what you think. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you guys for watching. Bye!